World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Good afternoon. This is Tony Rogers, your host for Urbanology, the Art of War. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. It's not the official beginning of summer, but it's usually when most people start thinking about that. And yesterday it was hot enough to be July, so we were there. I prefer heat. I'm a Juneteenth baby, and I'd rather it be 90 than 10. So I have no problems. Actually, most people were complaining last week about how cold it was, and today people were complaining about how hot it is. So I guess you can't win. You got to go with the flow. That's what I always learned to do, and then you'll be okay. Today I have a guest who has been a go-to person for many of my shows, whether it's on Urbanology, the TV, or HCR radio, is Gail Tweedy, who is a public relations expert who has always been able to, if I asked, find, people who are doing interesting things throughout the city. And I thought it would be good to have her on to talk about some of the projects that she's working on now. There are some interesting ones, and I think that people may be interested in understanding how the summer is starting to shape up. So please give a warm welcome to Ms. Gail Tweedy. Hi, Gail. How are you doing? It sounds like you can't hear me. I'm not sure why that is, but there seems to be some sort of a technical issue. I understand. I'm not sure what to tell you, Gail. Can you But anyway, let me give you a little bit of information about Gail while she can try to figure that out as to what she needs to do. We're having some technical difficulties. So, one of the things that I know about Gail is that she has been a representative of many, many restaurant owners and individuals who are doing a number of major projects in the not only the Harlem area, throughout the New York City as a whole. So one of the things that we were going to talk about, and I hope that she can get her sound in place, is clients that are doing things over the summer. There are a number of things happening over this summer. I know that many of you who listen understand that. Can you hear me now, Gil, at all? No? So she's still trying to do that. So I think that they're trying to work with her. But a number of you know that next week I'll be going back to Senegal to start to put together the information that will be necessary for the December group trip to Senegal. And if you pick up the Harlem Community News this week, I believe I have an article on it about the major art festival that's taking place now, the biennial in Dakar, Senegal, which is where I'll be going. The whole idea is to begin to create an opportunity for African and Caribbean Americans to start looking at places like Senegal as a preferred destination when they are able to travel. Africa has not always been, unfortunately, the major issue as relates to traveling. People of color, especially African American and Caribbean Americans, have tended to go other places outside of Africa. I guess the colonizer did a pretty good job in doing that. But nevertheless, we're working on that issue. And of course, coming up pretty soon, June the 19th, will be the 50th anniversary of the Marcus Garvey Cycling Classic, which will take place around Marcus Garvey. It used to be Mount Morris Park, but now Marcus Garvey Park. And that should be very exciting. A lot of people are coming in. And I'm just checking. Gail, can you hear me yet?
Mm-hmm.
You can hear me.
I'm working.
Okay. Well, that's good. I can't dance because I'm sitting down, but I was just trying to dance to make sure, I remember my good friend Sandman Sims, who used to be at the Apollo, used to always say, well, I tap dance. So when they don't have stuff back there, I just start dancing until they tell me it's over. So I was dancing. But again, as I was saying before, Gail Tweedy is a publicist and has many clients she's helped me select clients for this show and other shows that I do. And I was reading some of her information, and I didn't know that you were one of the major persons who developed this job fair industry in New York in your days before you became a publicist. How did that go?
Well, back in the late 70s, I came up with an idea to work with businesses and help them hire people. And that became job fairs. And I started a company out of Chicago. I was living in New York and Chicago, and it was called Career Concepts. And we became the largest job fair company in the country. We were doing in excess of 300 job fairs all across the country. So I was traveling about 500,000 miles a year. I was in 3 airplane crashes. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I moved back to New York full time and started doing my second love, which is publicity. And
Well,
as you know, I love what I do because I can make a difference.
well, you said you were in 3 airplane crashes. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I'm not kidding. 3 airplane crashes. Obviously, I walked away from all 3, but
which is
3.
what that was the point. Somebody wanted you to be around. I, I mean, these are major air or small planes.
They were big planes, but they were small crashes, luckily. My favorite one was coming in. I have a favorite airplane crash story. I was coming into John Wayne Airport in just north of Los Angeles. We were doing a job fair in LA. And I looked out the window because I was sitting in the window seat. And instead of looking at the horizon, I was looking at the ground because the plane had literally tipped so that we were wingtip toward the ground. And the pilot, knowing that the next step is we're going to flip over, literally went and landed the plane on the ground. And I love this. They came on the intercom and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to John Wayne Airport. We're thrilled you're here." And I'm sitting there going, "Did nobody notice that we just crashed?" I mean, really? So at that point, I decided, you know what? I love doing publicity. I did a lot of it when I was at Career Concepts. In fact, I even did an interview with Oprah, which was amazing. And I did all of the TV and newspaper and radio for Career Concepts. So I learned all the inside info on doing publicity. And obviously that's what I do now. And I just love it.
And I know that you started in 2000, I believe. What are
around 2000 to do publicity? Yep.
What are some of the major projects that you've worked on since you started?
Oh my gosh. I think my favorite project of all time, I work with an organization that is called ICNA, which is the Circle of North America, and it's a Muslim organization. And I sent a group of students that were half Muslim and half Jewish to Joplin, Missouri, the heart of the Bible Belt, where they beat their Bibles at least twice a week. And so I've got these kids that are Muslim and Jewish, and they're going to Joplin, Missouri to help rebuild homes after the F5 tornado went through and took out everything. The pictures of Joplin were devastating because literally the only thing that was left from that tornado were slabs of concrete where buildings used to be. And so the students left New York, they arrived in Joplin, and I had the story run in the Joplin paper on Friday. The students arrived on Monday, and the students are getting off the plane and all the TV stations are at the airport. And the kids are looking around going, wow, there was a celebrity on the plane we didn't see. And the stations are, no, we're here to see you. So literally all the stations in Joplin, Missouri followed the students around for the entire week as they were helping to rebuild homes. And what I love about that story is that anyone that saw how important it was to these students to be involved in the community and help rebuild these homes is going to remember when they see anything negative in the press about a Muslim family or a Muslim organization or a Jewish family or a Jewish organization, they're going to remember these students and how important it was to them to share their skills.
Well, that's kind of an interesting combination. Students who are half Muslim and half Jewish going to a Bible Belt Midwest location. I'm sure that there were some stories. That sounds like a movie.
It does. Maybe somebody will hear me and turn it into a movie.
I'm sure that there's a lot of material that could be developed, or either a comedy act. Maybe, Dave Chappelle might be able to do something with that. But that's a very unique situation.
It was.
But it went well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I loved about it is the kids had a great time. They met, the whole community in Joplin, Missouri. And I'm sure that most of the people that live there had not met anyone Jewish before, because it's, not a
Or Muslim.
exactly. And I'm absolutely positive they had never met anyone Muslim before. So this was an opportunity for, these young people to really impress how important community service is. And that's what I love about that story.
That's an interesting one. And, as you talked about it, maybe offline, that's kind of unique. However, coming back into 2022, I know one of the things that you were working on, because I read about it in one of your releases, is a project that Gwen Black has been working on for some time, is Jazz on Randall's Island. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we're doing 4 concerts this summer, 3 of which are going to be out on Governor's Island, and it starts this coming
Island,
Saturday.
Not Randall's Island, Governor's Island.
Governor's Island, yep. Yeah. And it starts this Saturday, and we'd love to have people come out and enjoy the music, enjoy Governor's Island. We're going to have some of the top jazz musicians in the country come through these concerts all summer. So the first one is this coming Saturday on Governor's Island. Starts in the early afternoon. People can come out, they can bring a picnic, they can have a great time and listen to some fabulous music.
Now, I know that you have to make a reservation on the ferry in order to get there. Is the concert free, or is it a...
Yes, the concert is free. Absolutely. The only thing that people will have to pay is $3 to get on the ferry to get over to Governor's Island. But other than that, it's free, and they can walk around the island. If you've never been to Governor's Island, it is an absolutely amazing place. And it's now part of the park system, not only here in New York, but national. Part of the national
park system. It's probably like Grant's Tomb, where the national parks and the New York City park kind of share different parts of it. But that should be interesting. Where can people find out about the dates of the concerts?
Well, we'll have information on Saturday on Governor's Island, but there are 3 more concerts beyond that. One latter part of June, then July, and then in August as well. August 13th is the last one, and that is back on Governor's Island. And we have Eugenie Jones coming out from Seattle, who was one of the top jazz singers in the world, and this is quite the coup that she's coming out to be part of this concert series.
I know that you introduced me, and I think actually Matt was with me at an art show with a musician, a female musician that I think she plays the cello. Or
yes, I just did a concert. I organized and produced a concert in the Bronx at St. Helena's Church. Maybe some of our listeners heard about this. The day after Christmas, St. Helena's had a massive fire that literally destroyed the back of the church. And it was on all the TV stations. And I'm sitting here watching a Christmas movie, and my phone went ding, 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 and I picked it up. And the text was, St. Helena's is on fire. So I immediately picked up the phone and called the TV stations. And I'm so grateful that Channel 4, Channel 7, and Channel 12 all covered the story. And it was on for several days beyond that because, it was a mess. The entire church had to be closed and cleaned, and it was water damage and fire damage and smoke damage. It was a mess. And then on the first Saturday in May, we did a major concert, and Christine Walenska, who was one of the top cellists in the world, came and played. And when I called her and said, Christine, I know you're going to say no, but gee, I'm putting together this concert and, we need some help. And she said, I'd be happy to play for it. She said, but we're going to need an accompanist. So I called a friend of mine, Mark Fiedler, and said, Mark, I'm putting together this concert at St. Helena. Can you play? And Mark said, yeah, do they have a piano? And I said, no, we don't have a piano. So I reached out to Beethoven's Pianos, and they were kind enough to donate a $40,000 piano to the church. So that's my legacy to the church, that we got this enormous, magnificent piano. And the concert went really well. We also had the Children's Orchestra Society come and play, and then the Bronx Concert Singers added music. And we called it Music from Around the World because Christine played some Brahms and some Mozart, and the Bronx Concert Singers sang in Swahili, which I loved, and French. And then the Children's Orchestra Society played some very contemporary music. So it was just a wonderful coming together of music from around the world.
Well, I guess I have a better understanding of why the powers that be in the heavens allow for you to walk away from 3 crashes because of some of the work that you've been doing, which is great. And actually, over the time that we were in backstage, you had invited me to, I believe Matt was with me, the same event that I met the cellist, to an art gallery in the village. And you were telling me that there's going to be a relocation of that gallery. But
right, Black Wall Street Gallery is a phenomenally interesting story. It is based on the Tulsa riots of 100 years ago. It was literally this year is 101 years. But the story is that there was an African-American man who was accused of sexually assaulting a woman, and the community in Tulsa got upset about it, and people gathered in an area of Tulsa that was called Black Wall Street because it was an affluent African-American community. And a small group gathered, and that group got larger and larger and larger. And now we're looking at thousands of people gathered to show their anger that this African-American man had been, times have not changed that much, sadly. And all of a sudden a riot broke out, and 20 blocks of Tulsa were razed to the ground, and 10,000 people lost their homes. Several thousand people were killed. And it was something that we didn't hear about until recently. I'd never heard of this, in any of the history books until I started working with the Black Wall Street Gallery, which opened in New York last June. And we've been showing artists of color, and some of the art has just been extraordinary. And the gallery had to move. The owner of the property came in and said, "You're doing really well. Now we'd like more money in rent." And the owner of the gallery said, "No, I don't want to do that." So he's been looking for new space. I can tell you now, I'm excited about it, that we are opening a new space this summer on 25th Street between 10th and 11th Avenue. Dr. Rico Wright, who's the owner of the gallery, has just recently found this space. So we're going to be, working with artists of color, and it's very exciting.
Well, I know that actually, as I remember, because Matt McCoy, the CEO of Soul City, and his team, along with his sister, Yana Woodhouse, were in Tulsa last year, and they did a number of projects. I think Yana received an award there because she's in banking and finance, and that was kind of like one of the themes. So
That's
actually,
wonderful.
when we went to the Black Wall Street Gallery, Matt was with me, and he did connect with Rocco to talk about some of the similar things that he was able to experience in Tulsa. But you're correct, a lot of that information. But there were a number of Tulsas. You know, Tulsa was one, and that was one that received a great deal of attention. But um, it's interesting how things go. But there were a number of situations like that, of cities of affluent blacks who, matter of fact, most of the cities that have black universities were cities that had affluent blacks that, in some kind of way, lost a lot of their properties and income, but they had established their universities, their colleges, their businesses, and the like. But those are stories that we don't always hear about. When you started doing your public relations, because I know that a lot of your clients are people of color, how did you come to find that niche as it relates to the work that you do?
My grandmother. My grandmother was the wisest woman that's ever lived on the planet. And in my mother's side of the family, we literally go back to the Mayflower. So I have old line blue blood New England and a little bit of American Indian. And my grandmother taught me when I was very young that there is no difference between the colors of people in this world. I got no melanin, as you can see in my complexion. You know, I was out in the sun yesterday doing an event in New Jersey, and I literally ran from tent to tent to tent so I could stay out of the sun. But, you know, people got melanin and people like me got none. And so I've never understood why anyone would have a problem with melanin. And that's really what it comes down to. It has never made sense to me that people have a prejudice. And the other thing is, you know, prejudice is sadly something that we pass to our children. We need to break that cycle and we can have a better world.
Well, you know, it's interesting when you look at the map that's behind you,
Yes.
which is very, very interesting. What you see, however, is what has been known scientifically, that at one time the continents were connected before they, because you could almost see it's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, you know, where you have these spaces of locations, and they could fit into each other because they did at one time. And,
Absolutely. The
and in
whole world was
Senegal, there's a
one.
museum, a newly developed museum that has traces of how people were able to migrate, and some of it was through, of course, water, but much of it was walking. You know, Asia and Africa, all of these places, Europe, were connected. So the migration was able to develop. The further out you went, the less, nature is selective, and those who were able to survive in the cold uh, did not need as much melanin as those who had to stay in the heat. And
Exactly.
the variations of the color was based on the migration, and that's kind of like how that had worked itself out. But if you really look at it from a scientific point of view, we're all African.
Absolutely.
All of the findings in this museum, they had some skeletons that were a few thousand years older than Lucy, which at one point we thought Lucy was the beginning, which was also, she was also found in Africa. She was a typo, and but science has allowed for us to understand that that's the case, and also as it relates to color. At one point, it was Africans and Europeans. The whole white-black thing came because of the slave trade, the idea of divide and conquer. And, you know, some of the indentured white slaves saw that their fate was not that much different for some of the black slaves, so they started to come together. So that had to be dealt with. So that's where this whole issue of black, not Africans, and whites, not European, came about. But before that, I'd say maybe about 800 years ago, there was no real, this whole issue of racism was not what was going on, you know.
And wouldn't it be nice if we could get back to that?
Well, you know, all things happen in cycles. And just as, you know, the four seasons develop, or even as the day, you know, the sun rises and settles, rises and settles. Everything in our existence has cycles. And it may not be in our lifetime, especially mine, but I do believe there has been a shift beginning in 2020 and going on. I mean, actually 2000 was when, you know, the major shift as far as different types of energies came about. The media used it as a commercial. Everybody thought that it was going to be disaster in 2000, but it really was a shift of energy. And the Maya calendar indicated that certain things would stop and certain other things would begin. That was misinterpreted as everything was going to end. No, it was the end of a certain mindset, a certain period. So I believe that we're moving in a direction. More people, I believe, in the last 2 years became aware of things than ever before. You know, even the George Floyd concepts and some of these things, you know, all over the world, you know, people started coming together, you know, but, and what's fascinating, which is a story, I'm still thinking about this Jewish Muslim connection. That's a, you know, that's an ideal example of how, it doesn't make any difference. It's what's in your heart, what's in your mindset. We've been tricked into allowing for ourselves to separate each other rather than understanding that there are more that we have in common than we have as it relates to division. But getting back to you and some of the things that are happening this summer, what are some of the other projects that you're looking at that will take us?
Oh my gosh. Well, we're doing a major event in Brooklyn, the 25th and 26th of June, a festival with the African Restaurant Week. And that's going to be huge. There's also a festival like that in Newark, New Jersey, which we're really excited about. We're actually working with the city government in Newark to put that together.
What type of festival would that be?
Say that again?
What type of festival in Newark?
Well, it's going to be a food festival. We'll have vendors there, tremendously fabulous music. So it's really a family event for people to come out and enjoy the weather, enjoy the music, enjoy the food. A lot of the vendors will be African American. So it will be African American food for people that have not tasted it. They need to come out, and all that information is on African Restaurant Week website. So if you go to AfricanRestaurantWeek.com, you can find out more about that.
And there's usually, I don't know, it's not in the summer, but there's a African Restaurant Week.
There is, and that's coming up. That's coming up in October, and that will be here in the city. And also, there you go, AfricanRestaurantWeek.com. And there's more information about other cities that we're now getting involved in this as well. But we're very excited that the city of Newark has jumped on board to help out with making this incredibly successful. We did one last year in Newark, and it went very well. And that's one of the reasons why the city of Newark is now putting their stamp of, this is a great idea. Let's do it again. So we're excited about that. I'm also working on San Gennaro Festival, which will be in September. And that's one of the biggest festivals that we have here in the city. And last year, I had all the press down there for it. And we had fun because I got Mike Martha from ABC. He came down and covered it. And I put him on the Ferris wheel. And he did a live segment from the 9-story top of the Ferris wheel on the news. And my contacts at ABC called me after that aired and said, that had to be you. You had to do that. That your signature was all over that. So that was a lot of fun.
And that's a major food festival that takes place in Little Italy, where if you are on a diet, you don't want to go too close there because there's so much food.
Well, just anything the couple of days beforehand, but it's a lot of fun. We have vendors, we have food from literally all over the country. Food vendors will come in and set up, and there's games and there's opportunities for the kids, and it's really a wonderful family event. Last year we had over 1 million people come through in the 10 days that the festival is over, and I anticipate more than that this year.
Yeah, especially now that some of the pandemic has
waned down, hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, it's always something. Now, I know that you also have a number of clients who have opened up restaurants in Harlem.
Yes.
Could you talk about a couple of them?
I would love to. There's a brand new restaurant, and you have an invitation, Tony, to come and join me anytime. It's brand new restaurant called Tropical Cove. It's on Frederick Douglass Boulevard at 122nd Street. And they have a chef that is incredible. He has to be one of the best chefs, not only in Harlem, but one of the best chefs in the city. He cooked up a meal for me that was just amazing. And it's Caribbean inspired. And, they do everything in there. It's just absolutely a fabulous restaurant. It's open every day from about 4 o'clock until about 10 o'clock. And this summer that we're going to be doing a grand opening, and I have Eugenie Jones coming to perform in the restaurant. And I am so excited about that.
When will be the opening, the grand opening?
We're working on that as we speak. So, we need the liquor license up and running and all of that. So probably Eugenie will be there sometime in August.
Mm-hmm. Around Harlem Week. So,
exactly.
That might be something that could be fit in. But there are a couple of other restaurants that you've talked to me about. What are some of the other clients that are relatively new?
I also work with a lot of restaurants all over the city. We're getting ready to do a fun event down in Lunella restaurant down in Little Italy. We're going to be doing a drag night, which is going to be fun. And we're also doing a comedy event. I also work with Gotham Comedy Club on 23rd Street. And, one of the things that we've noticed about, everybody has noticed about the pandemic is, when was the last time you had a really good laugh? When was the last time, other than talking to me all the time, but when was the last time you had a fabulous, really good belly laugh? and it's we're dishing it out every single night at Gotham Comedy Club. So get out, come down, and
is that every night? And what are the time frames for that?
Yeah, it's open every night. You can go to the website Gotham Comedy Club and make a reservation, and it's a fabulous night out. The food is good, and literally some of the top comedians in the country have performed there. Jerry, why can't I think of his last? Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yep, he considers the place home. Chris Rock. There's just any number of A-list comedians that got their start there.
Well, Steinfeld and Rock they tend to hang out in the same locations.
Exactly. So, we're building the whole next generation of A-list comedians. So you'd get a chance to see them at the start of their careers.
Well, that's interesting. And I know that you have been working with Cecil's. They had a major Earth Day event that took place.
We had a really interesting series of about 2 weeks. I got a phone call from Rafael Benvenides, who's the owner of the Cecil and Minton's Jazz Club right next door. That's another place I work at, Minton's. But he called me and said, we had a break-in last night. And I'm like, what? And a man came to the restaurant pulling one of those huge trash containers behind him. And he gets to the restaurant and he puts his trash container to the side. He pulls out a brick and he throws it at the window 3 times. The window then totally disintegrates. Shards of glass go everywhere. And he was able to obviously get into the restaurant. He went exactly where the cash registers were, all 3 of them. Then he went in the back of the restaurant and was able to get some of the receipts. So he walked out with about $8,500. And then 3 days later, he came back and tried to do it again, except the window that he targeted was a double pane. So he couldn't get through that. So instead, he walked around the corner and went to another restaurant on Lenox Avenue, broke the window there. That was Setapane, broke the window and got in there. I don't know what he got, but he must have gotten something. And then another 3 days later, he came back to the Cecil and tried to get in a 3rd time. And Raphael happened to be in the restaurant and heard the bang, bang, bang of the brick and called 911, and the police were able to come. And he didn't run away. He walked. He just kind of walked around the corner. And the police caught him because he had that big trash container that he was pulling. I call it a new form of briefcase because, that's where he was keeping his bricks. You need something to carry your bricks in. And what's really interesting about this story is that he had been arrested. It's what now, May? This happened in April, middle part of April. He had been arrested 24 times since January. Since January. And obviously he's now in jail because, we're not playing anymore. We're not going to let him out and do it again. But he literally had been arrested 24 times since January.
Well, it got good, sometimes, even with.
And the funny thing is, I found out recently that he had robbed another client of mine, which is the Cloakroom. I think you came in one night to the Cloakroom uptown, which is another
What's the address of the
jazz club.
Yeah.
Fabulous jazz club on 143rd, just off of Amsterdam Avenue. And he got in there with the same thing. He brought his briefcase with the bricks in it and broke the window and got in there. And all he got that time was a couple of bottles of alcohol because everything was put away already. But maybe that's what he was going after. We don't know. So he, so 2 of my clients he robbed. And it turns out he was living on 139th Street. So, I called him a one-man crime spree.
Well, that's interesting. But getting back to Cecil's, the Earth Day that they had, they named a street, I believe.
They did. Minton's Jazz Club is one of the iconic jazz clubs in the country. It's where all of the major jazz performers for the last 100 years, Miles Davis. Can you imagine going into Minton's some night and hearing Billie Holiday? She was in the nightly band at Minton's. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie. That's where bebop was developed. A lot of people.
And it was. Bebop was born at Minton's. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a festival in front of Minton's, and food from all over the world. And the city renamed the corner of 118th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. One Direction on 118th is now called Minton's Way. And the block on St. Nicholas Avenue at 118th to 116th is now called Bebop Place. So Minton.
Actually, we interviewed the owner on Soul City, Raphael, and Matt McCoy, the CEO of Soul City. We celebrated. Well, he had a number of celebrations for his birthday, but we celebrated his birthday at Cecil based on, connection, and we talked about that on the show. But so, that worked out well, and it's always good to have locations like that where people can go get good food, get good service, and the entertainment is always is very helpful. Anything happening in July and August? I know you mentioned a couple of them, but anything that you did not? I know you stay busy pretty much.
I try to stay busy. And as you know, I love what I do because I can make a difference for a restaurant. One of the things that I say is that businesses tend not to think about publicity. It's literally the last thing they think about, but it's really the first thing they need, because in order to stay open, you got to have people coming in your door. And publicity is literally the tool that makes that happen.
And I know one of the members of the Harlem Tourism Board, Jason Wallace, I don't know whether you know Jason, but he is working with a group called Eat Okra. And you should look at that. And there's an app, and that app is very good for Black-owned restaurants.
How wonderful!
It's a search engine. It's not only a search engine for Black-owned restaurants, but it's a way for these restaurants to become more focused on things like landlords that we were just talking about, as far as upping the price. As far as Jason is a restaurant specialist. I think he considers his name the restaurant scientist, and wow. He is really a person that if there are any restaurants that need consultants, I'll make sure that I send you some of his stuff. As a matter of fact, he just sent out an interview with the owners of Eat Okra, which is really becoming, I mean, they have thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers throughout the country.
That's fabulous.
And it's, but it's eatokra.com. And you might want to, since you handle a lot of restaurants, a lot of Black-owned restaurants, that may be something as far as, letting them know that it exists. And since, and they should also become members of the not the Greater Harlem, I'm in so many organizations sometimes I get them mixed up. The Harlem Tourism Board, because again, Jason is one of the board members of the Harlem Tourism Board. So if they are interested in knowing or having a wonderful information source and consulting in a one-stop shop, that may be something that they might be interested in doing.
Absolutely. I have a couple of businesses that are interested in joining. So I'll make that happen.
And one of the other things that I know that you have had some relationship with is a lot of the outdoor festivals. I know that you mentioned one in Newark, but you also mentioned another one that you were working with, and I didn't.
It's going to be in Flatbush, Brooklyn,
Brooklyn,
the 26th and the 27th of June. Yep. And again, you can get more information on that on African Restaurant Week.
And African Restaurant Week is in October. Matter of fact, I'm in the process. I will be leaving for Senegal next week. We'll be getting to develop a sister city relationship between Dakar and Harlem.
Oh, how wonderful.
And the African Restaurant Week, there are a number of Senegalese restaurants in Harlem. Matter of fact, Harlem has the largest population of Senegalese in the country.
In the country, absolutely.
116th Street is Little Senegal.
A lot of those restaurants on 116th Street, just off of Frederick Douglass Boulevard. Yep.
So that has been an interesting. Now, my office is on 116th Street. That's where I'm broadcasting from. So it's, I guess, something that was supposed to be.
Right.
But Gail, I appreciate you coming on and giving us a little information about the many things that you're doing. But could you again give some information about this coming June, this coming weekend, the June
Saturday
jazz piece, so that people could be aware of that, because that's coming up right around now, and I'm trying to look at my schedule. I've promised Gwen at some point we'll have her on, who has been doing this for some time. Usually her events are around August, and Harlem Week is always taking up that slack. But this June, I'm going to try to do that. But give the information again about the June Governor's Island event.
Absolutely. Governor's Island this coming Saturday is Arts and Jazz Fest. And so we're going to have some of the top jazz performers in the city. If you love jazz, Governor's Island is where you want to be this weekend, because, you know, we're going to do it up big. There'll be food. There'll be things for the kids. It's really a family-oriented day with fabulous music. And you get a chance to see Governor's Island if you've never been there. It really is. The views from there are absolutely spectacular. And you get a chance to walk around and see where, the officers lived and worked on Governor's Island. And it was an outpost, a military outpost, until just a couple of years ago.
And you have to make reservations, I believe, on the ferry.
You do. You have to make reservations on the ferry, the Governor's Island ferry. It's $3. You can go online and make a reservation. And hopefully we're going to have lots.
When you go online, you're looking for Governor's Island ferry. Is that
Governor's Island ferry? There's also a ferry, I understand, from Brooklyn now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's $3 to get over to the island, and you can.
And
walk
that's a
around.
nice ride in the summertime, also.
Oh, absolutely!
It's a nice experience. At one time, I remember you could drive and you could take your car, but that was some time ago. But at any rate, that sounds like a good plan. I have to look at my schedule, and then there's another one in July, though, right?
Yes, July. I believe it's July 23rd, and then August
13th, I believe.
13th, and that's going to be back on Governor's Island. And then we're also doing one in Riverside Park on 145th Street, but I don't have the date of that in my brain right now. But I know that that's coming up as well
during the summer.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of different activities. And I'm interested also in the Tropical Cove. Is it Tropical Cove? Is it?
Tropical Cove. You have an open invitation. Come anytime, Tony. The food is out of this world. They have a fabulous chef and it's brand new. Nobody's heard about it yet. So I'm excited to work with the owners to get it on the map. Well,
I will get the information that maybe, this week, maybe, look at that and before it becomes discovered, I might be good to.
Well, see, my plan is to get it really popular. So come now. So before, you can't get in the door.
Okay. Well, again, Gail, thank you for your time. You have done a lot of things in this area, and I'm happy to know you. You're a good backup person. Whenever I'm in the kind of a mix, I call you up, and you usually always deliver. So
absolutely,
I appreciate that. And matter of fact, before I leave, I remember there was a Beethoven concert, the birthday of Beethoven, that was in Carnegie Hall, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, that was just literally, that was the year of Beethoven's 250th birthday.
Right.
And there were events planned worldwide celebrating his birthday. The problem was the pandemic got in the way. And the one we did at Carnegie Hall was the only concert celebrating his birthday. And I was lucky to be asked to do the press for it. And as you know, I also sing. And so I was one of the sopranos in the soprano section for the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, which is the Ode to Joy. And we're on the top floor of Carnegie Hall, and we walk down 8 sets of stairs, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on the stage. And we walk out in a line and we sit down together. It's very, nicely organized. And I sat down and I looked out into the audience and I caught my breath because there were no empty seats in the audience. And it was like, oh my gosh, I just filled Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, and the tenor, he was a very strong voiced Black guy. I forget his name, but we had a very interesting conversation because what people are not aware of is that
Beethoven was Black.
Right.
Yes. Beethoven was Black. Thank you.
And I developed an article about that, but he we were talking and he was saying he was so happy to be able to be a lead tenor in this because it gave him an opportunity to allow for people to understand that people of color, Black people in particular, had a universal influence in music. And
absolutely.
When you hear of Beethoven, you kind of look towards the European components of it, but you don't really see pictures of actual, the pictures are always doctored, and allows for you not to see it. But I remember that was a great experience. So that was another pleasure to be able to be there and see it.
I know, poor Tony, whenever I've got anything going on, I call you or I email you and, hey, you got to come here, you got to come there. So thank you for coming to that concert. It was really appreciated.
Well, thank you, Gail. We'll be in contact. I will do my best. I have to look at my schedule. Hopefully I can get out to Governor's Island on Saturday. So you take care and thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great summer, everybody.
That's, again, Gail Tweedy, if you ever need some public relations. She's a good person to deal with. I'm on my way out. This was a good show, as they all are. I like to thank again Matt McCoy for his help, and we'll be back next week. That'll be the week just before I go to Senegal. Matter of fact, I might try to see, can I do a broadcast out of Senegal? That would be great. But we'll talk. And thank you for listening. And this is Tony Rogers, Urbanology Systems, signing off.
This is Kia Rogers, and you're listening to Urbanology with my dad, Tony Rogers, on WHCR 90.3 FM New York.
Urbanology.